Jem, we have so much to get into because it's been
Get
11
down to
days.
it.
It's been one vote, but you packed a lot into those 11 days.
I did. I wanted to play, man. I was itching to play. I wish I was on Yanu.
Listen, be careful what you wish for. Well, let's get into where things ended because obviously it looks like you didn't really have a sense that you were going, obviously. Otherwise, you would have played your idol. But did you get a sense that any votes were coming your way? What did you think the vote was going to be like when you stepped into tribal council?
So we had a thorough plan, and it was gonna be that, the guys, what we heard is the boys are saying Mo. So we know that two votes are probably gonna go Mo's way, but we had kind of an idea of what's going to happen. Like Mo and I are going to put our vote on Ben, and Maria two vote and Charlie vote will go on Tim, because I still wanted to play it off like one of them had the idol, and also I wanted to flush Maria's second vote. So that was the whole idea of like her using the second vote. I was like, okay, let's just say we're going to get rid of that. When we go into the merge, I'm the only person with an advantage that nobody knows about. So I had zero. When I saw my name the first time, I wanted to fucking scream. I wanted to turn around and just, I wish I had the machete then. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, yeah, you could have walked out with it too. That would have put them, talk about wanting to play on Yanu. That would have put Siga very much deep in the hole, for lack of a better term.
Yep. But no, yeah, I was so like, I I didn't know it was gonna happen, man.
Well, what's interesting is we see throughout this afternoon, speaking of the machete that you were swinging around, I mean, the way that you had sort of conducted yourself around Tim and around Ben is so interesting to me because it felt so open and so blunt of, I know you two are working together, yet so cagey at the same time. You're denying that you have the beware advantage, you're denying the existence of a girls' alliance. Talk to me about your approach there with those two particular guys.
So Tim and I had like starting day one, we said we're gonna be in an alliance together. And so we kind of had an alliance, and like he was like, what do you think of Maria? And I was like, oh, she's cool. And he was like, oh, can we bring her in? I was like, sure. So Tim, Maria, and I had an alliance that Maria and I know that we weren't gonna go with. We were like, let's just entertain him to make him feel comfortable because he has Ben. So he think it's like four.
Hmm.
Okay. So we had that. So Tim and I'm a little sassy in my real life. I could be a little bitchy too, but Tim and I always was like really blunt. So the conversation that you see with me and Tim, that was not on the last day. That didn't happen then. That happened when we were digging. So when we were walking,
Oh.
he was like, so da 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 da, like tell me about this. And I was like, I don't know. Like, and then he always was like, if something happened, who do you want to vote for? And then I said, you tell me who to vote for now,
Hmm.
because I don't want to like give them any sort of ammunition. But in the last day, we had a plan, like Charlie's Angel had a plan that we were just going to have conversation with the boys and kind of see where their heads at. And so we were kind of doing like a round robin. Everybody was idol hunting, but somebody was coming to them to have a conversation. So the conversation that you saw with Ben and I was about to dig when Ben approached me. And that's why my heart was in my hand. I thought he had seen, but he didn't. But that's why I was like, just tell me who you want to vote for. Let's get it over with. Like, I'm there. I'm not going to flip on you. Like, just get the fuck over with it. Like, stop talking to me. Let's go. Let's keep the conversation going because I want to dig. Because at that point, I had zero vote.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like,
Talk to me about the timeline of that because you're trying to rush to get everything in play before the first ever vote you're going to cast in
yeah.
Survivor, and you
Because
want to make sure you have that vote. And we see like everyone kind of scatters at a certain point, but it sounds like from what you're alluding to, you happen to benefit from like everyone also going off on one-on-ones and also idol hunting.
yeah. So it was like, okay, let's all try to find, as you see, I said, I think it's easier if everybody go find an idol, give everybody a fair chance. And I only said that because, as you know, we do everything together. And everybody agreed And so we were like, how are we gonna do the one-on-ones? And we're like, we're just gonna, wherever you are, if somebody is in that area, they'll come. And then that's how like Ben approached. And I was like, that's why I had the machete, but I had it down. I needed the machete for a reason, but he saw that I was with a machete, and I guess he felt some type of way. He started running around with a hammer, and I was like, all right. I looked at him and I was like, why are you sleeping with the hammer on your chest? I think they showed that. I was like, all right, you're a little crazy, but I guess like I have a reason, but I don't know what's yours. And then I did have another conversation with Tim um during like that time, and he asked me some questions. So I don't know if it was like in that moment that I also kind of like flamed out a little at him, but I was like, you're not giving me anybody at the end of the day. Like, he's not giving me anybody, and he keeps like pressuring, who am I going to vote for? And I was like, I'm not going to tell you your buddy Ben, but who are you going to vote for?
Talk to me about the structure of this Charlie's Angels alliance. Did it seem to you like it really was the three women thick as thieves and Charlie, or was it more so like we were shown, which was you and Mariah, and then Maria was actually off doing stuff with Charlie on her own?
So it's so weird that like Charlie thought that Mariah and I were like the one on one side, because that wasn't the thing. So I don't
Hmm.
know where that idea came from, because I thought, I know I approached Maria at one point and I said, you and Mariah are like going off, like I feel like you guys are the tightest. And I know I had a conversation with Charlie regarding that. I said, hey, I think we're the ones on the outs, because I see Maria and Mariah having a lot of conversations. And so it wasn't like Mo and I wasn't like having a lot of conversation, but I think like the way they see it was that we were tied because the two of them were tied, and they were kind of having these thoughts in their head. But Charlie's Angels started basically from day two.
Hmm.
So you have an alliance on day two, and we made sure that every single day we're checking in with each other to see if we're still okay, like one-on-ones as a group. And that's why I was so blindsided, because I never saw it coming, because the idea was that we're still going to talk to the boys on the day of the vote out to like reassure them, but I never really thought that they were going to think of going with the boys instead, else I would
So
have played my head.
So obviously, one of the big things we saw you do that drove Siga up the wall was rehide this beware advantage. And you talk about how much fun that was for you. But from our perspective, it seemed like it also helped people like Tim kind of start eyeballing you as like, well, for some reason, I think it might be Jem, which sort of I think leads to this reputation of you being this big player. That might be one of the reasons why you're talking with me today. How do you look back on that decision ultimately?
I still stand by it, because at the end of the day, nobody knew that I had the idol. Zero. Else they would have like split their vote and do crazy stuff. They didn't know I had it. Nobody was on to me. There was no scent. So I pulled it off gracefully. I wanted to, so I wanted to like hide something there
Hmm.
after, but I only had one scroll at that point that said that I have to wait until we lose an immunity challenge to come back in this area. So I couldn't hide just the scroll, because it wouldn't make sense, because they had to have something, and I didn't want to leave the box. I contemplating leaving the box there for somebody to find it so they can bring it to camp, because we group idle hunt, so it's an easy access for me. So I've thought of like a lot of things, like, oh, maybe I leave it there, they find the box, they'll bring it to camp, they can't open it up, it says wait until you lose. Once we lose, then they're going to go dig at that spot when I know the original spot. So I'll go dig at the original spot and complete what I need to and open it and take the idol out, put a fake one in, and then but I was like, I'm not gonna have that much time. So I just like, what was an idea became, it like fizzled out, and that's where you see they were digging for nothing. But I had so many plans up my sleeve, and I thought we were gonna lose like the next day. So had we lost earlier, you would have seen it all come together. But because it took us forever to lose, they started digging, and they were digging for 3 days, and we didn't lose, so I couldn't do anything about it.
So what you just mentioned, you had a lot of plans in the hopper. And again, it seemed like what Tim and Ben and Charlie were vocalizing was that they felt you were overplaying, you were playing too hard for the end game. What do you make of that assessment? Is that a perception you were surprised by?
I was super surprised, because I laid low, like way low, because I don't think there was anything that we didn't do as a tribe, and nobody knew about what I was doing on the side. So I think that came about from the night before we
Mm,
went to tribal council before we lost. I told them like my personal story. So my backstory that didn't show. So I told them
interesting.
that, and everybody was like crying and like really emotional about it. And so I think they were thinking that, okay, somebody with a big backstory like this makes it to merge. There's other big backstory at merge because we've heard it at the mat, like the mat chat. And so they were like, okay, we can't let somebody like that get into the merge because then it'll be a problem. So I think, and that's where I fucked up because I shouldn't have done it. I wrote in my pre-pondy, like, don't do it. And I still did it.
That's so interesting. So let's say you do survive the night. Let's say that Ben goes. You probably are expecting a merge, not either coming that round or the next round. What was your plan? Were you trying to move forward with Charlie's Angels? Were you possibly getting wary after that personal story of like, okay, maybe me and some of these other people might get targeted because of that?
Well, I want to play a hardcore game. I want to play, I don't want to say old school Survivor, but like rootless Survivor of playing every single day and not like surviving and singing songs. Like that wasn't my vibe. Um, especially when I don't know any of the songs. So I wanted to get to the merge, and I'm a loyal person. So I would have continued with them if they kept playing, if they wanted to make big moves and do things. And then I wanted to get to the end with 4 people, including myself, who deserve it, who've done everything in the game, and then duke it out. I want to play a game like that where the 4 best people that played the 4 greatest game gets to the end. And now we really go back and forth between the 4 of us, or well, the 3 of us after somebody goes to fire, or whatever they do. And then really let the people decide who played a game, but we've all made moves that are individuals and separate. And so I was already prepping my resume, and I already had a lot of things that I had up my sleeve that hopefully someday I'll use it.
Last thing, last thing
Yeah.
I want to ask is that, we see you swinging that machete around and talking about laying low. Something that you and I talked about when we were out there before the game started is you're like, I have some of the probably the most experience out of this cast, coming from your background with this environment. You have the capacity to be a provider, but you're not necessarily going to step up in the moment because you didn't want to be perceived as just like a one-dimensional thing, right? You
Yeah.
compared yourself to Nasir in that way. Couldn't help but notice the Jungle Gem nickname did come out pretty soon into the game. So how much did that end up paying off? How much did that sort of game set you set for yourself pre-game end up coming true?
First day I became the provider of the tribe because they did not know anything. And so I think that's why like my vote out impacted me more, because I fed these people for their entire time before they make to the merge. Like I fattened them up to give them great freaking energy for the merge. And I was like, I should have let y'all starve. But next time I know. But no, I couldn't let them starve because it's just who I am. And I became the provider. I know I said I wouldn't do it. And I said a lot of things I wouldn't do, but I did them all. So
I mean, that's part of the fun of Survivor, right? It's like once your feet actually hit the sand, your
yeah,
mind goes into the actual environment of the game and
yeah.
things might change. But for what it's worth, you fattened us up on a lot of content, especially when Siga wasn't going to tribal council. You were making sure we got some content. And thank you for doing that. Obviously, I wish you had the ability to list out that resume you were already building for yourself in the final 3, but regardless, it was such a fun time getting to watch you play. And it sounds like from what you were expressing, even during some devastating moments like your blind side, it was still fun for you.
I take it with the most, I don't know, I think it's experience, and I genuinely enjoyed my time there. And I felt like it was everything I wanted. I just wish it was longer, and I wish I came home with $1 million. But hey, maybe next time.
Exactly. When, not if. Well, thank you, Jem, as always, for taking the time to chat with me. Absolutely loved it. All the best to you and your family. And thanks so much again. Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Bye.